Like and subscribe right now, or this spider will crawl in your face while you're sleeping. Do you daydream about seeing a real mermaid? While for many of us, this might be the highlight of our day, there are actually some of the most dangerous mythical creatures to ever come across. Don't believe the Disney hype about mermaids being sweet fish women, seeking their soulmates. In reality, sinister mermaid mythology characterizes them as sea monsters, worthy of any horror film. They will even feast on your flesh. With that being said, let's look at 12 of the most terrifying myths and stories of dangerous mermaids in the world. Number 12. The Little Mermaid involves a literal bloodbath. The Little Mermaid is a sinister morality tale by the 19th century Danish author Hans Christian Andersen. Like the beloved Disney film, it follows a mermaid's quest to win the heart of the handsome prince whose life she saves from the water. Unlike the beloved Disney film, the original story takes a dark turn when the mermaid is unable to win the prince's heart. Mute and alone, she is doomed to be transformed into sea foam because the fish girls have no souls and cannot go to heaven. Her sisters sell their hair to the sea witch in exchange for a dagger that the mermaid must use to pierce the prince in his sleep. If she lets his blood wash over her feet, she will regrow her tail and return to the ocean. The heroine stands over the sleeping prince with the dagger for a long time, but cannot follow through with the dreadful act. Because she resisted taking him, angels appear and let her know she can work for several hundred years doing good deeds, and then perhaps she can obtain an immortal soul and go to heaven. Number 11. A Japanese mermaid has a snake body and fangs. Sure, it's unsettling to think about a half-fish person, but what about a half-snake person? This Japanese myth is known as Nur-Onna, and she has the face and hair of a woman, but the eyes and teeth of a snake. Nur-Onna sits by the shore, cradling a bundle to trick humans into thinking she's a distressed mother holding a baby. If a passerby picks up her bundle, it becomes so heavy it pins them to the rocks. Then, Nur-Onna uses her long, pointed tongue to drain their blood at a pace that suits her. In some versions of the tale, she even strangles her victim with her pretty hair. Number 10. The Blue Men of the Minch have a taste for human flesh. Scottish folklore tells of a strange group of creatures that inhabit one particular strait. According to legend, they would appear in groups with only their torsos raised out of the water. These Blue Men of Minch would wave to sailors in a friendly manner, and the sailors would assume they were innocent people in need of rescue. But when the sailors got closer, they would see the unnatural blueness of the men's skin and the elongated, twisted features of their faces. Unfortunately, sailors close enough to recognize the Blue Men were close enough to become prey. The men would drag them into the water and feast on their flesh. Number 9. Those seductive sirens were actually horrific monsters. The Odyssey details one man's quest to get home, despite the machinations of an evil woman. But of all the seductresses Odysseus faces, none stand out quite like the sirens. These creatures are commonly depicted as mermaids, whose beauty equals that of their deadly songs. However, in the original text, the sirens have the bodies of birds, and the only thing about them is their singing. This makes them more like harpies, who are traditionally the personification of lethal storm winds. Either way, you're likely facing a shipwreck. Number 8. The First Mermaid was the result of a suicide attempt. Perhaps the oldest known mermaid myth is the Syrian tale of Atargatis. She was a goddess who fell in love with a human shepherd, but her divine strength accidentally took his life. Overcome with grief and guilt, Atargatis attempted to take her own life in the ocean. Gods usually turned into fish when they drove into the sea, but the goddess was too beautiful for that fate. The transformation stopped halfway through, and she became the First Mermaid. Number 7. Rusalki are the vengeful spirits of girls who passed violently. In Russian folklore, Rusalki are the spirits of women who took their own lives or were submerged in water until passing due to unwanted pregnancies. Their souls lived on forever in the form of vengeful mermaids who punished men and children for their fate. If you met a Rusalka, she would lure you in with her beauty and make you feel safe with her soothing voice. Once you were in her grasp, she would hold you underwater until you passed. In some versions of the story, she would instead tickle you to your end while she laughed to herself. Number 6. Irish mermaids are seals looking for their skins. In Irish folklore, selkies are seal women. When these creatures want to go on land, they simply peel off their seal skins and reveal their human forms, stowing their skins behind rocks. Unfortunately for them, any man can take a selkie his bride if he steals her skin, as long as he keeps the skin in a hidden place and oils it frequently. Selkie love stories always end in tragedy for the men and their half-selkie progeny, as land-bound selkies never stop hunting for their skins. They inevitably find them and return to sea, never to see their husbands or children again. Number 5. The Ningyo could grant eternal life. The Ningyo of Japan is a totally different kind of mermaid than you're probably used to. Instead of the traditional half-human, half-fish hybrid that is so common in Western mythology, the Ningyo can take various forms. The lower body of a fish with the upper half of a monkey, the whole body of a fish with the face of a bird, reptile, or even a human, and often sport grotesque razor-sharp teeth sprouting from their mouth. These creatures are more than just awful to look at. However, they supposedly possess incredible powers too. The flesh of a Ningyo, if consumed, supposedly could grant a person eternal life, or at least a very long one. One tale, Yao Bikuni, tells the story of a young girl who consumed Ningyo meat by accident after her father left it out. She wound up barely aging, but lived for many years, wandering through the world until one day she finally returned to her hometown to pass at the age of 800. Number 4. French mermaids have dragon wings and serpent tails. The Melusine is a sea creature from French mythology with a few tweaks on the traditional mermaid model. Her parents were a fairy and a human, but the mortal father betrayed the magical mother. When Melusine learned of the betrayal, she imprisoned her father in a mountain. Her mother, furious, cursed her from then on. She would turn into a serpent below the waist every Saturday. The beautiful Melusine eventually won the heart of a king, though she made him promise not to peek in her on Saturdays. But of course he did, and when he saw her monstrous appearance, she flew away. Number 3. Some mermaids are portly monks trying to convert you. The world was particularly human-centric in the 16th century. People believed that the creatures of the sea were just underwater versions of terrestrial animals and plants. So, when a French naturalist came across a sea creature that resembled a monk in 1554, he naturally concluded that it was the oceanic counterparts of those earthly figures. A description of the animal is pretty horrifying. It has a human head and face, resembling in appearance the men with shorn heads, whom we call monks because of their solitary life, but the appearance of its lower parts, bearing a coating of scales, barely indicated the torn and severed limbs and joints of the human body. The creature is now believed to be a giant squid, though the whole story could have been a hoax on the part of the naturalist. And now we've come to the best pick of the day. Is the mermaid that this lady is dragging on the beach real? If so, it seems that the mermaid died a long time ago. The big question is, where the heck did she find it? Number 2. The Arabian Nights describes a grotesque mermaid. The Arabian Nights, a collection of Middle Eastern folk tales, originally called 1001 Nights, contains many colorful descriptions of mythical creatures. Perhaps the most off-putting is the text's take on the mermaid. Moon faces and hair like women's, but their hands and feet are in the bellies, and they had tails like fishes. Terrifying appearance aside, these sea people essentially lived just like humans. One protagonist in the Arabian Nights even spends some time in an underwater realm ruled by mermaids. Number 1. A mermaid goddess routinely ruined men's lives. A deity of European folklore, Melusine, or Melusina, depending on the source, was half woman, half something. In some tales, she had the lower body of a fish. In other depictions, it was the lower body of the serpent, and sometimes she even had wings or more than one tail. Yes, exactly like the Starbucks logo. The legends of Melusine tend to vary somewhat, but all revolve around the central idea of Melusine reverting back to her fishy self when she's in the bath. Otherwise, no one could tell she wasn't human. She would always tell men to never gaze upon her in the bath, and they would always break their promise. The punishment for doing so? Melusine would leave them every time, sometimes just moving on to another man, sometimes running away to Avalon, but always leaving the men who loved her brokenhearted. And with that being said, we've come to the end of this video. So, which one of these mermaid myths and stories terrified you the most? Let us know in the comment section down below. Want more videos that will exist until the end of time? Click on any of the videos that you see on the screen. And as always, thanks for watching.